Good evening and welcome to the Franchise Tag Podcast with me, your host, Freddie Hall. Welcome back, Sky, Adam and James, for a divisional game review and also the conference game preview as well. If you haven't noticed or seen in the last few hours, we've released it on our social media. We will be at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. We are very, very excited and very privileged to be able to go to that. All the hard work that we've been putting in this season and in the seasons prior to this, since I've created this, sort of led us to the Super Bowl, which is a fantastic achievement. So we are very excited to be going there. Obviously, reach out to us if you are also attending as well, and we'd love to catch up. And we are also looking for guests for Radio Row. So definitely hit us up. We've got a few guests lined up already, which should be good fun. So yeah, very, very excited. It feels very, very real. It's coming in very, very soon. And yeah, it's going to be a blast when we're there. Make sure you keep an eye on our YouTube and our social medias platforms while we are there. So let's firstly look at the divisional games that happened over the weekend. Saturday being the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Houston Texans 23-14. Then into the early hours of the morning for us UK fans, it was the Washington Commanders shockingly beating the Detroit Lions 45-31. The Sunday night games, of which me and Sky watched together amongst friends of ours in two different locations as well. It was like we had two different stadiums, wasn't it? The Philadelphia Eagles beat the LA Rams 28-22, and then the Buffalo Bills beating the Baltimore Ravens 27-25. The snow, a massive factor in both of them games. Sky, the snow was a factor for these two games, evidently. Obviously, the Eagles really poured it on in the snow. It got worse and worse as we were watching it together. But there was moments in that game where we thought the Rams could definitely take hold of it. And as well in the Ravens-Bills game, the snow mattered there as well, didn't it?
Yeah, I think the snow mattered more in the Ravens-Bills game because LA was like 16-15 and they were moving the ball at the start of the fourth. It looked like the Rams were going to take the lead. I think that was just, a bit... It was mad. Obviously, there was a couple of drives, like we said, watching it live, where they weren't moving the ball and then they suddenly got back into it, whereas it always felt like Buffalo always had that slight advantage. We saw that with obviously Lamar and that turnover. Don't know if that was weather inflicted, but it was almost like Lamar's playoff pass come back round in that first half and the weather probably didn't help. But yeah, it was a shame. We were saying when we were watching it, Matthew Stafford obviously played in Detroit for years, so it was never going to be an issue for him to play in that weather. But unfortunately, they didn't get it done.
Yeah, and I also think, notably watching these two games and obviously the games as well, I'm sure we'll get onto refs' calls and stuff like that, James. But games in these playoff brackets do sort of hinge on moments, don't they? And I mean, one big moment, Mark Andrews dropping that ball on the line, but then there was also the fumble earlier in the game by Mark Andrews, which this isn't a grilling of Mark Andrews. I think he played fantastic in that game. The Eagles, that Saquon Barkley breakaway touchdown, fantastic. I mean, the early turnovers for the Lions, the refs calls in the Chiefs game as well. I mean, it is them. It's hard to sort of realize that you work so hard throughout the season to get these points, but it is the small margins and small moments that ultimately do win or lose games in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at a lot of these games and it wasn't necessarily that any team played particularly badly. It's the teams that lost were the teams that just created or generated mistakes or turnovers. And if you're going to do that, you're going to lose games. And, you see it all throughout the regular season. It's amplified in these games that mean more in these one-off moments. And, we were talking about the Ravens you talk about Lamar Jackson and this sort of playoff Lamar narrative is going to just keep coming up now. He's like registered multiple turnovers in 50% of his playoff starts. In the regular season, he's only turning the ball over like 15%. And okay, if you're looking at the number of games played, it skews those numbers a little bit, but it just comes down to the fineness of those moments, like you say, the decisions, the opportunities missed. It's really frustrating. I thought that actually the Ravens played well in their game, considering the weather conditions and everything else that they're not used to playing in. And It's really hard. I mean, the Kansas City refs. Chiefs. Different kettle of fish altogether. You're looking at the moments. There wasn't so much self-inflicted mistakes from the Texans as much as it was just calls going against them for stupid mistakes that they weren't necessarily making in a different game. So yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard in these one-off games. Everything feels much more amplified and magnified, and the questions come even bigger afterwards. But I think we were treated to really good games this time around. There were no major blowouts. We had one upset, which was nice. The Lions, just maybe injuries just caught up with them in this one. It just was one game too far for them. But a lot to look forward to for the championship games now.
Turnovers are also the big thing of the weekend. I mean, the teams that had the least amount of turnovers all won, didn't they, Adam? Like that is, it's factors like, the famous issue was defenses and running games win championships, but turnovers is a huge one now. I mean, you can't. You look at that. I was saying, like I just said, 4 teams went through with least amount of and they were the ones with least amount of turnovers. It all matters.
Yeah, I think it's quite a look. If you want to just focus on the Bills Ravens when it comes to turnovers, it's like it's all well and good coming out and saying that Mark Andrews dropped it. Yes, he should have caught it. He should have done. But at the end of the day, if you've got a quarterback that's gonna, throw an interception, is going to then fumble the ball, you can't get over that. And the same kind of goes for what happened between the Commanders and the Lions. I mean, the fact is like Jared Goff just throwing interceptions, and the Commanders defense just seemed to play him very well in this game. They seemed to know where to go and how where they felt like Goff was going to go, and so it kind of worked really for them. As you say, the quarterbacks that create the turnovers, obviously that's why you've lost. The ones that have just played clean, the Jaden Daniels, very little went wrong, and he didn't really do anything that badly, and there you go. It kind of worked out. I think that's what it boils down to a lot of the time, especially in playoff football, because the margins are so small that just any sort of mistake from a quarterback in that way is going to cause a significant issue for your team to be able to get back into it. But you need a reliable quarterback in these circumstances.
All right, well, let's address the elephant in the room then. Refs and calls and all that sort. Now, I'm going to be really honest. This is the only game I watched. I started watching the highlights on the way to meet Sky on Sunday, and then the download was out of sync, and I just cannot bear that. I can't bear it when it all gets out of sync, and I don't want to watch it. So I've not actually seen the botched calls. However, I feel like I know about one. What wasn't one where Mahomes sort of intentionally was about to run out and then stopped to get the hit and to get the rough in, and
the flop.
The second one.
Yeah. Is that what it's being crowned as, the flop?
Well,
okay.
Yeah, it was like an NBA type style fit. It just seems the way the league that way now. Like it's just not. I don't know. The Texans were called twice for personal fouls, and the second one, the one that I think you're talking about, was just so questionable. And it almost got to the point that I think we were saying on Sunday evening that
is this a classic Gary Neville, the game's gone sort of thing?
It feels like that. I'm sorry, I don't want to be that guy, but when the sport becomes, when it's listed as an entertainment brand, right? Obviously we know about football, you could go 2-footed back in the day. The NBA said not a contact sport, but it was physical. Like now, it almost feels like superstar players know that they can get these calls. And it just almost felt like the refs in the end were giving the Texans calls back. It was like, we've made a few mistakes. Back in the day, like, a team's got a penalty, probably at Old Trafford. I would know that one. And then we'll even it out later on for a couple of free kicks to you. It felt like that the refs were like, we know the Texans have lost, but we'll give them a couple of, like illegal contacts or holds there. And it was just, it's a shame because we know how good the Chiefs can be. Like, of course, I'm one of their biggest haters, but they're on for a three-peat, and I think it takes it away from them as well. In that, you know how good Patrick Mahomes is. And I'm more annoyed at him for that little tiptoe on the sideline. I was like, come on, you don't need to lower yourself to that. But he's not going to care what I think because they're in another AFC Championship game.
I think the thing with Mahomes and the Chiefs that they've done really well over the last couple of years, and you can say it's frustrating or whatever. I don't know what it is really, but they're really good at understanding the rules and the laws and using them to their advantage. The roughing the passer calls, the flop or whatever we're calling it now. You see him throwing passes up into plays where he knows there's going to come out a flag for pass interference and stuff. He's just you could say he's a very intelligent player, and he's very good at manipulating the situations to his team's advantage, where a lot of other quarterbacks aren't. Now, whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But if we take the call on the slide, for example, nobody barely touches him. There's more of a chance of the two Texans defenders injuring each other when they completely career into him. Mm. And I think we've had this conversation before, Freddie, when we were talking about the hit that Trevor Lawrence took. I hate sliding with quarterbacks. Once you're out of the pocket and you're in the open field, you are a runner. And once you slide, you make yourself really vulnerable. Just either get yourself out of bounds or get the ball away or take the hit. You would have had to have taken it in the pocket if you're going to get sacked. So just find a way to be able to take the hit. Don't slide down, because Mahomes knows he's going to get the penalty for that if anybody hits him, and he slid really late to draw them into each other. And again, it's sort of clever if you want to call it that from him, but I don't like it. So I think something needs to be looked at around this sliding rule this off season, because it's getting dangerous now to take defenders and quarterbacks.
It feels like it's been a big topic this year.
Yeah,
something's going to change, surely.
You'd have thought so, and I have to admit, as rubbish as it is Kenny Pickett's fault, because he did that fake slide a couple of seasons ago. He went to slide and then he faked it and carried on, and you can't do that. You just can't. It's almost like a bit like now declaring the onside kick. I feel there needs to be look, you can't. We discussed that the weekend, didn't we, about how rubbish that is. How you should not be able to. You shouldn't declare the onside kick. No way. That's half the fun of an onside kick, is you don't know when it's coming in a way sometimes.
Yeah. It just needs to be like James said. They need to create some point of emphasis to just let the defenders treat the quarterback as any other ball carrier. Once they're past that line of scrimmage, that's it. It's just I get you want to protect your most valuable assets, but come on, that's why. And it has been a thing for years, even be a Patriots fan, Brady or whatever. It's almost like a thing. Was it Lamar? Someone said something to a quarterback a few years ago, you haven't been in the league long enough to get those calls. I feel like it was Lamar, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. There was a late hit, and it's a known thing. Now he might get those calls because, he's a multiple MVP winner and it's Lamar Jackson. But yeah, it just seems to be a bit of protection around the Chiefs.
You need to get off that high horse.
Me?
Yeah.
Well, it's not anyone else, is it?
Why?
Because your franchise and Tom Brady, I just took it upon myself to blame Kenny Pickett. It's your franchise and your quarterback that started this mess.
You do know when his ACL got torn, it was below the knee. So, that's a good protection to have. Yeah, that's fair.
I do feel like a lot of this is on the league, though, rather than the players. They're just taking advantage of it. Things like them becoming runners, it is more difficult. They do want to protect their quarterbacks. And you do sort of think, I can understand why they're going down that route. My issue, out of all of the ones that was the worst, was when he runs to the sideline, purposefully slows up to get hit. That's the one that needs to be taken out, because you can see exactly what he's doing. And it's not just him. Josh Allen has done it as well in previous games. We've seen it with a few of them. They're slowing down as they're going out of bounds, hoping that a defender hits them so they can get the penalty. That is what needs to change, and that's where you're actually, to a certain degree, it's almost, I suppose, you're like goading the defender to do it, and then if the defender falls for it, you gain from it, and that's where it's just a little bit like that feels like they're taking advantage of the rules at the moment, but that's where the rules need to change, because it just kind of feels like that's a little bit taking the mickey compared to other things.
Is that only going to change when somebody big name does it and actually gets properly wiped out and injured? Because
probably.
Because then it's too late. What's the point?
Yeah.
Like, we can see it happening now. Everybody knows it's happening. You know, it's not even like we're the only people talking about this. They've seen it. You know, I'm massive broadcasters talking about it. Articles written about it. If Mahomes in that instance got absolutely smashed and was out of the game, and you know, then we'd be, you know, immediately the league would be looking at saying, okay, well, we'll make the changes this offseason. You know, we need to address this right now. But until it happens, it feels like it's got to get to the worst possible point before the league addresses it. This is something they need to get in front of and change now before it gets to that point.
I'm going to move on though from doom and gloom of refs calls, and maybe just I'm going to probably just take a player out of each game, not to talk about in a totality, but it's really because I want to talk about a particular player, and I don't know how to go about talking about a particular player really. But you know, in the Chiefs game, Travis Kelce, fantastic game. In the Rams Eagles game, Saquon Barkley, as awesome as ever. In the Ravens Bills game, Josh Allen, phenomenal. But I've got to say, all season I've said this: Jaden Daniels is a delight to watch. Like is he the best rookie quarterback ever? Ever to come out and be like this good, this quickly, straight away. In a team, let's remember, that didn't have a great offseason recruiting, has practically the same team as they did last year and had that high draft pick and had that terrible record. Yes, they brought in Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury, and there's good and bad things about both of them that have been said around the league. However, last time Dan Quinn was the head coach in Atlanta, it went bad. It did go bad in the end.
That was good.
Say again. Well, it was good for you. Yeah, it was good for you. All goes back to the Patriots, doesn't it?
I've got an answer for you. I'm happy to go first. He's the most accomplished in terms of making a championship game, the best that I've seen in the first year since Russell Wilson did with the Seahawks when they made the championship game in his rookie year. I think I can sit there and say I've seen because people forget that year that Matt Flynn was going to be picked as a starter, and you know, of course, there was no question marks around Daniels not starting. But like you said, same with that Seahawks team. That was before they, you know, had their dominant defense, etc. There was low expectations, and he is essentially not single-handedly, but I mean, just changed the face of a franchise that was in disarray.
I think you could argue single-handedly. To be honest with you,
I know. It's been amazing to watch, and this is why, you know, we were saying about Lamar and a playoff record at the beginning, and you know, James mentioned that too. And these are the moments why these guys are picked, right? Look what he's done in the playoffs. Look what he's done to a 15-2 team, and no rookie quarterbacks ever made the Super Bowl. I mentioned that when me and you did the show last week, Fred. But I don't know, I'm starting to almost buy into now as like this just feels like something special. Feels like something unique and special is happening.
I don't know if we're giving the Commanders enough credit as an organization overall, really. I mean, I just want to just go through a few names here of like the sort of rebuild job that they did. So if you look at like staff moves, Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Joe Witt Jr. as DC, good names with NFL pedigree. And then free agent signings, offensively at least, Austin Eckler, Noah Brown, Zach Ertz, Tyler Biadasz, Nick Allegretti. Then they had the draft picks of Daniels, Newton, then, you know, traded for Marshawn Lattimore. Defensively, they signed Cleveland Farrell, Dante Fowler, Armstrong, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, Noah Igbenogany, Jeremy Chin. You know, this was not massive splash names, but NFL ready starters who just needed perhaps a change of environment to be able to reignite their career in some way. Dan Quinn has done an awesome job with this team, and Jaden Daniels obviously is the face of that, and he deserves as much credit as anyone for where they are, but they wouldn't be where they are if all of these things weren't working in some way as well. They're not the greatest defense left, arguably the worst defense left, but they're playing well above where they are and where they've been posting numbers throughout the season. So I don't know, there's just like Sky said, there's just something about this team that you can't not like at the moment and not think, I just kind of really want him now to just take it all the way if they can, because it would be.
Of course we do. Everyone hates the Eagles. Everyone hates the Eagles. We all want the Commanders to win the Super Bowl, and then we want the Bills.
No, I don't know if I'd go that far. I think I'd rather have the Bills win, to be honest. But
the Commanders Bills are on that. We all want
that'd be a good Super Bowl.
That's the one I want to see. That's the matchup that I think everybody wants.
Yeah.
Adam, what's your say on JD?
Everything's been said. He's nicked all my points. I've got nothing to say. What is there to say? I think he's great. I love the fact that he's my dynasty quarterback, and I'm going to get lots of first-round picks for trading him away. So that's nice. I don't think this is the end by any stretch for them. They've got 70 million in cap space as well for next year. I think that they can really go out and get probably a really good wide receiver too, because as great as De'Ami Brown has been, I do wonder whether they might want to go out and do that just to boost that.
This season's been a really good advertisement for what they can do in the off season. Like the players are going to look at Washington now and go, "Oh, I want to go there. I want to go there for sure."
Yeah, I think they will.
It was the same with Dan Campbell in the Lions.
Yeah,
it was the exact same thing. It was like we're making us, we are advertising ourselves to what we can be.
Yeah, I think that Dan Quinn has shown that he is capable, and he's shown it before that he's a capable head coach. They've got a OC there who's a good OC. He just didn't make it as a head coach, which some of them don't. And I think the future is nothing but bright for an organization that has had nothing but crap thrown at it for many, many years. It's finally, a very sort of like positive mood around Washington now, and they could easily be a force to be reckoned with for a good number of years.
Yeah.
In with Jaden Daniels there, but also just if they can keep the guys that they need to keep when they need to keep them, then they could be very, very good.
A little thing on the Lions and the Ravens, because obviously now both teams been to the playoffs. Ravens multiple times, not reached the Super Bowl. The Lions obviously were very close last year, but the Lions situation is, they've lost Ben Johnson yesterday. It's been officially sort of posted today, but we all know it's coming. But he's gone to the Chicago Bears. Aaron Glenn is in the building in New York with the Jets today, and there's a lot of posts knocking around that they don't want him to leave the building. Really, they want him to be the head coach there. So there's problems there. I mean, the Ravens, probably the best squad they've had in any of their playoff runs in the last few years. I mean, both these teams are going to have to go back to the drawing board. Are you more worried for the Ravens or the Lions here, if they can bounce back next year?
Personally, I think the Lions. I think losing both your OC and DC is a really big issue. And actually, we saw, didn't we, with the Eagles, how they lost both of them, brought in two new ones, didn't work at all, brought in two new ones and has worked. So that's what you could end up with the Lions. You could end up with that problem. Now, if they can bring in the right guys or they can promote the right guys, then maybe they'll be okay. Whereas for the feeling that I get, it kind of feels like Todd Monken at the Ravens is not really getting them interviews from what I can tell, or certainly not compared to Ben Johnson was getting and now Aaron Glenn is getting. So it kind of feels a little bit like, in that respect, I think there's more chance of more balls up in the air, I suppose, when it comes to the Lions than it is with the Ravens. And I think that's the real issue for them.
Let's look at next weekend.
Oh.
So next Sunday, this Sunday coming, 8 o'clock, we've got the Washington Commanders going to Lincoln Financial Field to play their divisional rivals, the Philadelphia Eagles. And then 11:30, we've got the Buffalo Bills traveling to Arrowhead to face the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, let's focus on the Commanders-Eagles game to begin with here, Sky. Like I said, we all want the Commanders to win. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. Do they have a chance, though?
Oh, yeah, of course they have a chance. I mean, the two... Was it the first game they played, Jalen Hurts was injured? Or I imagine that, maybe. Well, there was a big...
And
then the second one, maybe I've imagined that. But the second one was obviously the crazy game where the Commanders nicked it at the end. And I feel like we could see a similar game on Sunday, one score. But, I mean, everybody's talked about all the reasons for the Commanders. And I think, obviously, as much as we all sat here probably not wanting Philly to win, they were my pick to win the Super Bowl at the start of the season. And as much as I'm not Jalen Hurts' biggest fan, I just think that when you have a running back playing to the level that Barkley is, and as much as, Hurts, I still don't think he's maybe as a quarterback who can lead a team to a victory from behind. Even though, when you have guys like A.J. Brown who've been quiet, you just know that at any moment they could have a big game. And it almost feels like they've got stuff there in their locker if they need to pull it out. So, I mean, if I was going percentages, I'd probably go 60-40 to the Eagles, is how I feel. I just feel like, that secondary as well. We could sit here all day and talk about all the playmakers there and what they've done, with the rookies. And, I mean, even Slay had a decent game again, didn't he? We were saying about he's almost become... He's sort of like an on-the-field tutor for those younger guys now. So, yeah, leading towards Philly, but I'm hoping... I'm doing the reverse jinx, Fred. Been doing it for 2 weeks. I'm waiting, just reverse jinx it. Someone beat them.
It was the second game, but they won 36-33, but
okay.
got injured in. Yeah. And
I don't remember the score of the first one then, but obviously that second one was a crazy game.
The first one, the Commanders lost 26-18 against the Eagles.
That's still close.
Yeah, I mean, I'm part joking about Commanders, but obviously every neutral would want the Commanders to win because they are the lesser team. But the Eagles, James, I mean, they have been seriously impressive this year. Like Saquon Barkley has been phenomenal, and their defense, though I think has a couple of holes. I mean, their top guys are performing at such high level. Jalen Carter was phenomenal last game, a really great player. The two rookie cornerbacks have been great. Quinion Mitchell is trending to be fit for this game as well, which won't help the Commanders. And obviously, it'll be a big moment for both of them. That Slay, like I said, had a really good game. Zach Baum, maybe Defensive Player of the Year at this point. I mean, you're going to have to push your chips all in for the Commanders to beat this Eagles team, I think.
Yeah, the biggest problem that the Commanders could have is that they focus so much on stopping the run that they leave themselves exposed in the passing game, which... the Eagles' passing game hasn't been all that great, really. But I feel like it's just too risky to give them the opportunity to prove to you what they can do. The receivers are excellent, great tight end. And Hurts has got it in his locker to make a lot of the throws needed to win a game. He just needs to play clean, which has always kind of been the question mark over him in the passing game. So the Commanders are going to have a really balanced approach as to how they stop this. Because also it's not just Saquon on the ground. Jalen Hurts is a great runner when he gets that little hint of space as well. But I think the thing for Washington as well is like nobody's expected them to get this far. All these games are just free hits. They can play without fear. They can play without too much pressure because nobody kind of expects them to win. And I think that's how they pulled it off against the Lions. They just weren't fearful of the game, of the opponent. Look at their aggression on fourth downs. If they do that again, they're going to be really hard to stop. And I think this is going to be, obviously they've got the experience of 2 regular season games now where, these teams do know each other. So it'd be really interesting to see what they do. I think this could be a real shootout type game. I'll say that now, it's going to be terrible and boring and just defensive struggles. But I don't know. It doesn't have that vibe to it. And so it's going to be really, really interesting to see how Washington approach it. But I just hope they go with the same approach that they did with the Lions game. And I think it'll make for a really interesting contest.
on one hand, Adam, you can have fearlessness and naivety, which can be a massive pro and no pressure. But on the flip side of it, experience does matter. Eagles have got a ton of experience at this level in the coaching room and on the players on the field as well. They've got a ton of. When I look at the squads now and you look at the starting lineups a little bit more now, the Eagles have got more notable. They have notable stars in most positions. I think that maybe is what pushes them over the line. Is their notable stars are playing at such a level with that experience that maybe that'll be too much for the Commanders to overcome.
Yeah, I think if you look at it in that sort of, statistically and sort of on paper, then that kind of makes a lot of sense that you would think that. I mean, it does feel like the Eagles do have more of the names and probably will be able to sort of like get them over the line because of that. I kind of agree with the fact of the whole no pressure. And I feel like Jaden Daniels is obviously in a weird kind of way dealing with that quite well. It's almost like that, there is an issue with not having any pressure as well. So it kind of feels like he's dealing with that quite well. And I don't think going to Philadelphia is going to cause an issue. I think where it might all fall apart for him is the big stage and the Super Bowl. That's where it could all fall apart because it is just completely different to what he's been doing. So that would be the issue. But yeah, I kind of, at the end of the day, I don't think that he's going to fall apart. I think it will be quite a close game. They've got them as the Eagles as 6-point favourites, which I think is slightly disrespectful to the Commanders and how they're playing. I'm surprised it's as high as it is. But I just think the Eagles are a very, very well put together team. And most of everything that you saw against the Rams, the reason that they are, and the Packers as well, and a lot of the games, the reason they are winning these games is the depth that they have on their depth chart, on their roster. That is what is getting them through. And I don't really think they're being coached particularly well. I don't think they're playing particularly well. But I think that they have just got so much depth that you can have these injuries and it's not causing them a problem. And so obviously a lot of that credit has to go to Howie Roseman.
I think Jaden Daniels hasn't felt pressure since April. And I think the night he got picked, I honestly do believe this. And I think it's a problem with what's happened with Caleb is he went to Washington, and I'm not saying he had no hype before the draft, but the hype was all Caleb. It was not. I don't think he got forgotten about, and everyone knew he was a good player, but there was, because it was all Caleb, it was less focused on Jaden. And I think because of that, he gets picked, what was it, 2 or 3 in it, 2, to go to the Commanders. And again, no one talked about it in the offseason, and people have talked about him all year, but it's because he has this coolness to him. But I think it's just remarkable, and he looks so much of a veteran head on a rookie quarterback. Like it's so commendable. I just find it hard to see with, like you said, with the Eagles' depth, them overcoming them. Scoreline, Adam?
I think it could be a bit of a high-scoring one, certainly more than what the over-under is. So I'd probably go 30-24, something like that to the Eagles. I think is probably what, maybe even closer than that, 30-27. It kind of feels like it's going to be something like that. But I have to say, would you all be surprised if the over-under is the same in this game as the next game? Because I'm surprised. They're both 47.5.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Something suspicious.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, James?
Commanders win.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're going to need to score points. I just don't. Maybe not. 27-24 seems maybe not high enough, but it if you can force force Hurts into a few mistakes, it might just be enough to sneak it at the end. Just don't want it to go down to a field goal. That's the thing for Washington. You just need it. You need the ball in Daniel's hands to get him to victory. So I'll get 27-24 Commanders.
Sky?
You don't know how much I just want to say Washington, but I can't do it. I can't. I just feel like the Eagles, I don't know. As long as it's not an Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl, but there's going to be, I just feel like the Eagles are going to get over the line by a field goal. And I think they will be relatively high scoring, but probably more field goals. You know, we saw quite a bit of conservativeness in other games. People happy to take the points. I'll go 29-26 to Philly.
See, I was going to go 27-24 to Commanders as well. That was like, when you said 27-24, I was like, that's exactly what I was going to do. But again, I feel like it might be a bit more high score. I'm going to go 30-27 to the Commanders. Which I think it's
I don't care about how many they score. If they score 9 and win, I'll take anything for now, just as long as the Eagles don't win.
Let's have a look at the Bills-Chiefs game then, because obviously, you know, the Chiefs been here, done this a lot of times, Sky. Been here, done this loads of times.
Yeah.
We know what they're about. We've said it since week 1 that the Chiefs don't care what they do in the season. It's all about January, February football. They were, they went on that unbeaten run this year, and we were like, well, they're the only team in the NFL that doesn't care less about an unbeaten run because they just need to get in the playoffs. They don't care if it's home or away; they'll beat you anywhere. But they're coming up against a Bills team that are in the form of their lives. I mean, but we've said this before about Buffalo in the playoffs. They're playing so, had a great season. They're playing so well. Josh Allen at such a great level, and they failed every year to get to that Super Bowl. And I've said it, multiple times, but I think the Bills need to win a Super Bowl and they should have and need to win a Super Bowl in this about 4-year bracket. But I mean, Josh Allen at the minute, he was fantastic against the Ravens. He's just their first half performance with Buffalo. I mean, if they come up against the Chiefs like that, can you see the Chiefs coming back from that?
I am ready. I'm going bold now. I think I've been texting Adam about this. I think the Bills are going to smash the Chiefs.
Really?
I think the Chiefs are overrated. The Bills had a league best plus 24 turnover differential during the regular season.
Two-time defending Super Bowl champion, but overrated.
They are. There's been too many close games, too many dodgy games. It's obviously when you have Mahomes and Andy Reid, and sorry to mention, not every Patriots team was great, but always made it to the playoffs, right? Because you have that consistency there with elite players, and they're always going to have a chance. But I just think there's something about the Bills. And I know me and Adam were texting yesterday, and I get that not much has changed in Buffalo. I get that 0-3 against the Chiefs in the playoffs. But that game that they played earlier in the year, Mahomes was under 200 passing yards. Hopkins and Kelsey did nothing. And I just think that Buffalo, this is the moment. To the Chiefs haven't lost a home game this season. To walk into there and just sort of, stamp your authority. When I say smash them, I'm talking I don't know. Let's go at least 14
points.
Yeah. I just feel like we saw Josh Allen. The reason for me, I know Lamar statistically has had this great year, but the reason for me that I see him as the MVP is because just the way he's developed his game and to be able to be that calm and collected. People were saying, they called a conservative game, but I liked that against the Ravens because they didn't put him in bad situations, and he has the experience now to know when to not make the mistakes that he used to make. We see him do it with his legs, see him do it with his arms, and they've got enough weapons there. I mean, the fact that guys like Ray Davis, rocked up on Sunday and had a big game. There's people that they've got who, I think there's more weapons than people realize. Shakir, Kincaid, Coleman, Cooper, they've done the smart thing of, okay, Diggs, see you later, you go. And we're just going to put an array of talent around you. And I think if it goes to a shootout, Buffalo are in the better position to win it.
But James, Chiefs just always find their way, don't they? They always just find a way, it feels like.
Not this time.
No.
Look, I know you can't just point blank just brush them off because, like Sky said, they have got that consistency in quarterback and head coach that the Patriots dynasty had in Belichick and Brady. And it's so easy to draw the comparisons, and it works. But they just haven't sounds stupid given their record and where they are now, but they haven't been that good.
They've not been.
Like they've done enough, and they've done enough in these games to get them to where they are now. But it's not just enough. Isn't going to be enough to see off the Bills. I don't feel like, and I think if they'd have played Ravens rather than a Texans, I think they would already be out. I hate the Chiefs, to be fair, so I don't really feel bad about saying anything, to be honest with you. So that's absolutely screw this. I hope the Bills absolutely crush them. Like the only problem from earlier in the season is that they're not in Buffalo now. They've got to go to Arrowhead, and I think, you know, if they've got the experience of going there, it's not like this is like an unusual or new environment for them. They're used to this hostility, especially Josh Allen, and he's been playing so clean all year. I mean, he's really, as Sky pointed out, just eradicated the silly mistakes that were causing this playoff heartbreak for them over the past few years. And I think we're just going to see, this is going to be the game that encapsulates the maturity of Josh Allen and what they can do as a team. They just feel like a better unit than they have done over the last few years as well. More complete, more well-rounded, more thought has been put into the players that they've brought in and let go, and they're just less drama. Okay, it's helped that they've stayed fairly injury-free as well. And this is what I think has been great about this run of the playoffs, and why I look forward to the Bills-Ravens game. Like, normally you go into the playoffs and Lamar and Josh Allen are just like sort of dragging a back leg in, and it's just like, or an arm's nearly falling off or something. But they both came into the games really healthy, and it you know, it showed, and I think it'll show in this game. You know, again, just eliminating the mistakes as they have done all year, and I think they're going to be fine. I think this is just going to be a sad Chiefs outing this weekend, I think.
Go on, Adam, make it a clean sweep.
I'd love to see Buffalo win. However, the Chiefs will win because the NFL want them to win. So that's the end of that.
Are you saying the NFL scripted?
No.
I never took you for a conspiracy theorist.
I think we would quite like Taylor Swift to be in New Orleans. Let's put it that way.
We wouldn't.
We'll drop her a text once they're eliminated.
That's the spirit. I think the Chiefs haven't been as good, obviously, this year as they have in previous years, but I don't think it matters. I think their defense is still good. The Bills were lucky to get through. When you think of the amount of the interception, the fumble, the drops from Andrews, they were lucky to get through. And in the second half of that game, Derrick Henry was running on them for fun. So I do feel that you're going to get a Chiefs team that, although are not as great, I think they'll still do that. You don't back against them.
I think we also
I've lost too much money backing against them. You don't change now. That's it.
I think we also need to remember. I think we are all talking about their offense. Like, their defense has been amazing.
Yeah,
that's true.
Like, it's been really, really, really good.
And actually, Kelsey has looked good in the playoffs. You know, he looked good last week.
That was never predicted. But there
you go. This is what happens. And as much as people don't want to admit it, them calls that they got last week a lot of them were shocking, and you just sort of think, how is it happening for you but not the others? So I do think there is protection for Mahomes over others. I do think that maybe a few flags do go flying a bit quicker when it's them, and I think that they'll end up getting a little bit of a little bit of a push, a little nudge towards New Orleans.
Getting help at home.
What's the score?
We want to see Haley Steinfeld, not Taylor Swift. That's what we want.
Well,
If I have to see Taylor Swift in New Orleans, I just don't know if I can just do that to myself. Like,
yeah, but they want to make
half-
Raiders fans' lives horrible. That's what the Chiefs are there.
Yeah, so they're doing a solid job, to be fair.
Let's get a scoreline, Adam.
I think it'll be really close, actually. But I think, again, a bit more, a bit slower down, I reckon, 24-21 Chiefs.
James?
34-27 Bills.
Sky?
In the 1993 playoffs,
No one cares about the 1993
the
playoffs.
Bills beat the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game.
Does that make a difference? Does it? Was Mahomes and Allen out there on 1993?
That is what I'm going for. And Turman Thomas had 3 touchdowns and 186 yards. So book your James Cook bets or Ray Davis. 30-13. That's what I'm going for.
30-13. That's cool.
30-14. That is a big shout. I'm going to go 27-24 Bills. I think it'll be close as well. I don't think it'll be crazy high scoring. 21-24. I do like the idea of Adams one though. But yeah, that is
odds on the number of cut shots to Taylor Swift in the booth in a box thing. Is that 527? It'll be more shots of her than there'll be actual play on the field. It'll be awful. Taylor Swift and whatever new friend she's made this week from whatever famous sport from what she's never watched before. Jesus Christ. Fucking hellfire.
For anyone who wants to be a bit more positive,
we're flipping that up.
It's just every time, it's just somebody else that she wheels out, like just goes on Instagram and finds some famous person that just makes her look good. She's got no intention of ever seeing or befriending again.
Up, Adam, you need to have the haters gonna hate in the back, shake it off, as James is saying it.
Oh man.
For anybody else who wants to watch all the NFL games over the weekend, I'm sure you'll have a fantastic time and not see Taylor Swift all that much, but hopefully some great gameplay nonetheless. Sky, James, Adam, thank you for joining me, and thank you again for watching and listening. Make sure you check us out on YouTube and all of our social media platforms. Again, we will be in New Orleans for the Super Bowl. Dead excited about that. We'll be back next week. Until then, enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you all again very soon.